Health, Mason County Board, I said that backwards, Mason County Board of Health regular meeting to order at 3:45. I would like to have introductions. We'll start in the back with Terry.
Lydia.
Go ahead.
Terry Kane with Washington Sea Grant.
Constance Dixon with the Lower Canal Watershed Coalition.
Brianna Lowe with the Mason County Journal.
My name is Yvette Wilson, and I'm a bachelor's nurse student in observation.
What's up?
Kathy McDowell, Commissioner of Finance for the City of Shelton.
Dave Wyndham, Director.
Debbie Riley, Mason County Public Health Environmental Health Manager.
And we have Lydia.
Lydia Buhite, Mason County Public Health.
And I'm Peggy Dunbusker with Hospital District 2.
Frank Phillips, Fire Commissioner.
Tammy Newton with Mason County Public Health and Human Services.
Commissioner Tim Sheldon.
Ray Jeffries, Mason County Commissioner.
Diana Yu, Health Officer from Mason County.
And our clerk of the board.
Julie Almazar.
Okay. So I would entertain a motion for the agenda.
I'm sure I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Okay. Motion and a second. All those approve?
Aye.
And approval of the minutes.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the minutes as presented.
Second it.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And so, Tammy, you're up.
All right, I get to open. Well, excited to talk with you all and update everyone about the 100-day challenge.
That's right. That's right.
So for those who don't know, gosh, about 84 days ago, we started the 100-day challenge to end family homelessness in Mason County. The Department of Commerce made available technical assistance via a competitive LOI process, which we applied for. And so we have been working on ending family homelessness as well as a lasting system change to how we address homelessness in Mason County. When we started, and we have a real opportunity to collaborate and do a better job of communicating as far as service providers. Really, it's just been Crossroads Housing that has used the Homeless Management Information System. So when Commerce looks at data from Mason County, when our senators and our state representatives look at data from Mason County, they're really only seeing information from Crossroads Housing. So getting everybody on the same page, using the same database, using the same tools, and collaborating together is a step in the right direction, something that we have been working on, and is also a requirement of the CHG funds that are made available to counties through the Department of Commerce.
CHG.
Consolidated Housing. So when we first started this process, we identified 12 homeless families. And again, the challenge is focusing on families because, homelessness, you cannot solve all homelessness with the same solution. So this is a focus on families to make it a doable goal. And taking a look at it and saying what lasting system changes can we put in place so that we can then start looking at tackling at a broader scope. So originally we had 12 families that we knew of that were homeless. And this is the HUD definition of homeless, which means that they are truly unsheltered. So these are folks that are living in a vehicle, who are living in tents, who are in a facility that is not meant for human habitation or does not have heat or water or basic amenities. After we got all the service providers together, we actually found out that once we got rid of all of our duplicates, we had 39. So we originally looked at this goal, and we were, I'll tell you, as a team, and this has been a great thing because the team really has been the local service providers. As a team, we were intimidated with the thought of 12 in 100 days. How are we going to house 12 homeless families in 100 days? Y'all know the real estate market. right? There's not a lot of affordable rentals out there. We have limited shelter space. So what were we going to do? Well, it's been kind of amazing because in working through the process, some of it is diversion. Diversion, I know, is a word that's used a lot in a lot of different programs, but in the housing world, when we talk about diversion, we're talking about things like, do you just need help paying the electric bill, right? If you're truly homeless, you're being kicked out of the place that you're at, what is it that you need either to be able to stay there or for us to be able to get you into another place? So Housing First is really becoming the new model, and we're saying, how do we keep people housed, not let them? Because it really used to be that people had to be pretty much kicked out of their environment before they could get help, right? Which is really expensive. So it's really looking at it from a different perspective. So anyway, that list of 39, we have about 9 of those that are inactive or they have self-resolved. They figured it out on their own. We've housed 20 families, actually, which is amazing. And we have 10 households remaining. 2 of those have rental assistance pending. 4 of them do remain unsheltered, and we have 4 that are unknown and unresponsive at this point in time. So the goal is to get through the remaining 10 by the end of the 100-day challenge, which is, I want to say, June 3rd. And then on June 6th, we have, and commissioners, you've been invited, we have a celebration. The other counties that were selected with us were Thurston and Cowlitz. So all 3 counties are going to be at the Governor's Mansion on Monday, June 6th from 1:30 to 3 to celebrate and really share with you some of the success stories. And the success stories are pretty amazing. You know, taking the collaborative approach, which coordinated entry is what we're working on as a lasting system change. You know, we've been able to take just one success story, a woman who has not been able to be housed because of her behavioral health issues. And finding the right mix of people to work with this individual, she's now receiving her behavioral health services. She's sheltered. She's doing well. Her teen daughter's no longer homeless with her, right? So we have a success story. And we have many of them. We have so far 20 of them, right? Which is pretty amazing. So it's really been a great project. And even though there was no money associated, there was no additional income associated with this, what it did do is it really allowed us and forced us to work together, to collaborate as a community and do a better job at what we do and start breaking down those silos. So it's really been a great challenge and so far great results. Yeah.
So system changes, how are you documenting, how we can move forward with that?
Yeah.
Did you get buy-in from all of your service providers?
We did, and that was one of the hardest things. So coordinated entry is an interesting thing because it means you have to give up a little power as a provider, right? And our domestic violence shelter was the one who struggled with that the most because they do have additional mandates on what it is that they can share and how it is that they can interact with their clients and what information can be shared, and all for obvious reasons. So we've really been talking with other counties and asking, how are you solving this, and kind of taking, and we are going to be a little bit of duct tape and bubble gum at first because we don't have any additional funding to do this. So, you know, for now, and we did roll out our coordinated entry. We're doing a soft rollout. It started last Thursday. And what that means is that we have service providers in the community that say, okay, yeah, we'll pay for the phone line for $10 a month. And we'll, you know, distribute who answers the phone. And we'll talk about folks when they come in, tackling it with the same questions so that we don't have somebody, because as we know, Belfair being, you know, 30 miles and these days 45 minutes if you're lucky depending on traffic. Right? So, you know, there are a lot of challenges there. So there's a lot of really good stuff happening. Utilizing the HMIS system, Kitsap really has blazed the way for that. And we went and looked at what they do in the reporting that they get out of it and the reports that honestly their commissioners see it. It's a beautiful thing. I mean, they're utilizing the tool the way it should be utilized. So on top of that, changing how we look at our RFP process, making sure that we're telling our providers that if you do have any local document reporting fee dollars, you will use HMIS. It's not an option anymore.
Is there a cost to the provider to accessing HMIS?
There's no cost. It's provided by Commerce.
Okay, just a...
For our domestic violence shelter, it's an additional data entry, but once you have coordinated entry, the initial entry is done, right? You'll have better wait list data, you'll have better demographic data, you'll know where they went and if they fell out, you know, so you'll have a lot more information than we have ever seen before.
What,
So,
HMIS
yeah.
stands for,
Homeless Management Information System,
and then who sponsors that?
Department of Commerce.
Commerce, that's what you mentioned before.
Yes.
Commerce.
Yes. Yeah. So it's a great thing. And you know, most of the time when people talk about systems like this, there's always security and data sharing and all of that stuff that's a concern. Well, it's there. We've just never gotten together as a team of providers and as a county and said, let's utilize the resources that are available to us.
So this housing coalition never had that brought up as a,
No, and you know, and it's interesting. I mean, it takes digging. You guys know this. I'm constantly talking to other counties. It takes digging and finding out what other people do and how they solve it and how they stretch their dollar. Because quite frankly, you know, Mason County has a really tiny amount of housing dollars available, and we need to make sure that we're maximizing our effort and results out of that investment.
So how did you find these families?
A lot of times they find us. So these families have called Turning Point, they've called Crossroads Housing, they've talked to North Mason Resources, so they're coming from the service providers. The thing that was different is that the original 12 we were looking at, that was the original 12 that Commerce could pull out of the data because that was from Crossroads and those were the only folks using that HMIS system. So we had to go old school, old fashioned. Everybody had to print their list. They had to, you know, sign agreements so that they could do data sharing. They had to talk with their clients about that and have agreement signed up so that they could do data sharing. It's been a lot of work. And the success story that I shared with you, Crossroads Housing has tried to help this person multiple times. And, you know, the last time we tried to help, they said, well, if we get you to DSHS, if we get you to, and they hung up on them.
How do you get the names through the schools at all?
Yes, and that was from Reinhardt and from our McKinney-Vento folks.
Okay.
Yeah,
congratulations.
thank you. It's exciting.
That is very exciting.
It is really exciting. So, RFP process has changed. Coordinated entry is, you know, part of what we should be. It's actually mandated through the CHG grant. And I will also tell you that this LOI, we were at risk as a county of losing some of our CHG funding because we did not have coordinated entry and we were not prioritizing truly unsheltered families. And so we were looking at losing 20% of the CHG funding each year until we either resolved it or it just went away. So Commerce is really happy with what they're seeing as well. So in the community, and when our domestic violence shelter got on board as excited, then you knew we are actually making a lasting system change. So it's just very great. So, thank you.
I just want to say thank you very much also for not allowing this county to drop the ball on what we might have available for resources. Your energy in your position is much appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah, I've enjoyed listening to the opinions that you're handing out there. You are bringing a lot of energy out there to those people. It's always.
And as your manager, she's a little light. She's working really hard. She's a very hard person.
Curious, do the Housing Coalition members, are they also invited to go to the reception at the Governor's Mansion?
I only have 40 spaces available for the county, and so we're sort of prioritizing. We'd like to see landlords, so prioritizing landlords and politicians at the top of the list.
Well, as much as I'd love to meet the governor and hear this, if there's somebody important there, I'd be willing to give up my spot.
I can't. It's a Monday.
I'm going to be out of town, so.
You're going to be out of town? Okay. All right. Terrific. Yeah. So we'll be, I know Representative Griffey will be there, and he's been very much an advocate and wanting to help us solve homelessness in Mason County. So we're going to have, it should be a good turnout. So we're going through the list, but yes, if anybody here would like to be added to that, please let me know.
And when is that?
That's June 6th, and it's from 1:30 to 3, and I have to have an RSVP by this Friday so that the governor's office can do a background check.
I would like to go.
Okay.
Terry and I have talked about this issue, so.
I don't know if we're going to have a briefing session going on that time or not.
Since she put it on the calendar, so I don't know.
Can you
Oh,
pop
is
me an
Diane back there?
email?
No, Diane's not back there.
Yeah, you have my email.
Diane put it on my calendar,
I
so
can get it.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome. Easy.
I'm sure Radar O'Reilly made sure that we were taken care of there.
I heard you ask her.
Yeah. We're blessed, we have one. We're
Who?
That's awesome.
Radar O'Reilly, you're from that. She knows what we're thinking before we think it. She hears the helicopter before it comes in.
Is she real or is she?
No, she's real, it's Diane. It's funny,
Oh.
the three commissioners could be arguing about something. When she
Oh.
says, well, it's this, we all go, oh, okay.
Okay.
She's the fourth commissioner, right?
There you go.
Oh, my gosh.
Well, thank you very much, and I guess you're up, Debbie.
I am. It was time, excuse me, it was time for a water quality update. So I wanted to do several things. In your packet, there was just kind of an overview sheet, and that was for Commissioner McDowell, Director Wyndham, the people who didn't have to sit through it last year and the year before. So I just kind of want to briefly touch on some of that. There are 19 shellfish growing areas listed in Mason County by the Washington State Department of Health Shellfish Program. And they're all around the county. They're in Hood Canal, they're in Puget Sound, they're everywhere from the south end of the county in waters that we share with with Thurston County, all the way to the north end where we share waters with Pierce, Kitsap, and Jefferson County. So,
Maybe can you explain how you get classified as a shellfish growing area?
oh yes, they make application to the Washington State Department of Health, and staff from that office.
Who's they?
Whoever wants to have a shellfish growing area, whoever wants to commercially harvest shellfish on properties.
Oh, I see, okay.
Yeah, so it's the people who are actually doing the growing and the harvesting that have to initiate the process. Then people from the State Department of Health come out, check the beach, and not only are they checking it for that harvester, they're checking it for whichever tribe would get half of that harvest as part of the Point No Point Treaty. So,
Unless you have
and
unless you're in the court case
yes,
and had a license before 1995,
something, yeah.
but you had to go through the court case.
But that's the natural set.
That's the natural set.
Not commercial.
No, I-
Plant.
Someone in our office has waterfront. They came out and did the assessment and said there was absolutely no natural set on that beach. So everything was theirs, that they could get to stay there, that didn't get swept with the water as it came and went. So, good question, thank you. And once those beaches are approved, they have to maintain a classification. Some are approved with no conditions. Some are approved with conditions, like you can harvest as long as there's not over 1/2 inch or an inch of rainfall. Some are areas that can just be used to transfer the shellfish kind of in a nursery setting to another area where they clean up and then are available for harvest after a certain length of time. And you probably know all those numbers better than I do.
And you're saying that, what about the 1/2 inch to an inch of rain?
Well, sometimes they've found through testing that when that much water falls on the upland areas, there's stuff that is flush, they call it the first flush in October usually, into the water, and it makes the water too high in fecal coliform bacteria to allow the shellfish to be safe for human
Well, we
consumption.
have more than 1/2 inch to an inch of rain.
Well, and when we had those
At one
times,
time.
the shellfish,
Oh, at one time?
At one
like
time.
Starting at a certain time and going,
right, for
just
about
rain and
24
rain.
hours.
Okay, I see.
But
And I know
Yeah.
Terry's back there in the corner, and she lives, breathes, and eats these numbers.
Okay, I understand now.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it depends on the grower, on the area.
on the area.
Department of Health will call, you have to have a license, if you have a license, they have your numbers, they call you and tell you you can't harvest for that particular time period.
I see.
And a lot of the South Puget Sound is determined by what falls at Taylor's Flupsy, just out on Highway 3 there.
Mhm, mhm.
So when we get an inch at Flupsy, a lot of places close down to harvest.
Okay.
Well, good, we've had a good discussion already. And then if there is a downgrade, a shellfish protection district is required by law to be formed. And we have and have had a few of those over the years. In 1992, we had Totten Little Skookum, and the Totten Little Skookum growing area is still a sensitive area for us. We want to watch it and do extra things to protect it. Lillywhite Bay in 1998. Oakland Bay, I jumped around. Lower Hood Canal in 1993. Then we had Annis Bay in 2005. Annis Bay was a very small area, roughly 30, 35 residences there. Yes.
Why wouldn't I be able to have, like, see Lower, why wouldn't the Lower Hood Canal be one of these shellfish district, or growing areas?
There are several growing areas in Lower Hood Canal. There's Lower Hood Canal 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9.
Okay, so, okay.
Yeah. One starts up by Jefferson County, and then they're chopped up into manageable bits. You wouldn't want
So
the
some of
whole...
these districts are a conglomeration of multiple growing
Yes.
areas. Got it, thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
very good.
Fine.
Yeah, and then Annis Bay had a downgrade in 2005, Oakland Bay in 2007, and Oakland Bay is very important to our economy because there's about $10 million worth of shellfish that comes out of Oakland Bay annually.
Wow.
A lot of jobs, a lot of food product going across the United States. Well, and with the gooey duck across the world. We had downgrades in McLean Cove, in Pickering Passage, and the Big Bend and Hood Canal in 2015. Currently, Church Point in Oakland Bay is threatened with a downgrade, as are Annis Bay and North Bay. And I just got something in the mail yesterday that was dated April 15th, but we had a little glitch in the mail because we changed from a post office box to street delivery. So it was sitting at the post office, but Casey's got that all taken care of for us. It's new threatened areas that I didn't have when I put this packet together and asked Julie to send it out to you.
Sorry.
Oh, do we have enough there? I've got-
Yeah, one
Okay.
extra.
Oh, right here. Oh, no, go ahead.
No, take care of them. Okay.
So where is Annis Bay?
Annis Bay is where the Skokomish River comes out into Hood Canal.
Okay.
It's a great family.
And so we're looking at threatened marine water stations in Annis Bay and in North Bay. And they made this nice little sheet that talks about failing threatened and concerned areas and had a little chart on it. So I just wanted to give it to you for information. May answer some of the questions that come to mind a little later on. It talks about what the 90th percentile is and the methods that they use to downgrade an area.
So what is under the category? What gets you in a category of failing or downgrading?
Excellent. I like their definitions. Failing, these marine water sampling stations do not meet the shellfish area water quality standards for safe harvest. The classification of shellfish harvesting area must be downgraded. That's not safe for human consumption.
Right.
So it's more than 43 fecal coliforms per 100 milliliters, pretty much consistently.
Would that be due to, what would the fecal matter? And where does that come in as far as where does it come from?
It comes from wildlife, it comes from agricultural practices, it comes from failing on-site septic systems, it comes from places that don't have on-site septic systems. We're currently chasing a few homeless camps around the community that, and I know the city was dealing with one just right outside the city limits, that they don't have any infrastructure, no Santa cans, nothing,
It goes
and
down into the ground and out into the water.
sometimes rushes out with those inches of rainfall that we get in a 24-hour period.
okay.
So,
I understand now.
okay, and threatened, it currently meets the standards, but it's teetering there. There's enough high ones that it might go over. And concerns just show that the water quality is impacted, so it gets progressively worse.
Has it grown in the past few years? The
It's a roller coaster. And that's the best way I can describe it. Sometimes when the water quality is bad, we get money, we get a lot of resources, we do a lot of work, and everything gets better. And then it's like that money goes to other people who were in a similar state, and we go on and do something else. There's not a lot of work being done. The water quality tends to get worse again. And that's is ask the Board of recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners to institute a fee so we can maintain that water quality, try and maintain the water
Okay.
quality.
All right.
So, we have 2 MRAs, which are marine recovery areas in the county, and those are Bay and Lower Hood Canal. So, and then since somebody has already asked the questions here, there are some highlights for Mason County that I want to give. We get about 65 inches of annual rainfall. I didn't realize it was quite that much. We have over 200 freshwater lakes. Puget Sound and Hood Canal account for almost 90 square miles of water, which is about 10% of our county's geographic area, our total area. Puget Sound only has 2,359 miles of shoreline. 218 of those miles, 9% of the Puget Sound shoreline, are here in Mason County. It's just amazing. And that's the 4th largest of the 12 counties bordering Puget Sound. So for a little county, we've got some
Do you
impact.
check the lakes also?
Not currently. They're a component in our Clean Water District work plan that we've set up but haven't implemented yet.
Okay, all
So
right.
yes. As far as water systems, because they're impacted too, our drinking water,
Mhm.
we have 227 Group A water systems in Mason County. Those serve more than 25 connections.
227
Mhm.
group A's.
Group A's, serving about 33,500 people.
What would Group A be?
Over 25 connections,
Okay.
yeah,
I thought it was
or
15.
commercial.
No, 15. No, it was 15 feet.
We're serving over 25 persons per.
25
Is that
persons
right?
per day, thank you, yeah. Like a small grocery store, if you have 25 people, which you do, or you're not going to make it as a small grocery store, you're going to have to be a Group A public water
How many was the
system.
total?
227 for 33,500 people.
So half the people.
Mhm. But we have 501 Group B systems. And those are 4 to 9 connections in this county. So that's about 5,500 people. And then about 20% of our residents receive their drinking water from single-family wells. We have an awful lot of straws to the aquifer in this county.
We had great aquifers.
We do.
Yeah.
We do, no doubt about that. But just wanted to touch base on that because so often when I talk about water quality, I forget to talk about the drinking water that we all depend on and count on. So with that overview, we have the 2 shellfish protection districts that the Board of County Commissioners authorized we've been working on. I wanted to tell you the work is going forward. Those shellfish protection districts are as different as night and day. The McLean Cove group is, we got a problem, we need a solution, let's get the work done. And they are moving along like crazy. The Hood Canal 6 group is still arguing about governance. So that's the different flavors, the different kinds of citizens we have who are interested. They all have their own desire to have good water quality, just 2 very different and distinct styles getting there. I talked about Church Point. It's very important historically and culturally to the Squaxin Island tribe. We're paying particular attention to that. It is part of our Oakland Bay Clean Water District, but it's not specifically in the area we're supposed to be working on the grant that we have right now. We're We're paying particular attention to it, however. We have 2 main grants that we're working on for surface water quality. We have the Hood Canal Pollution Identification and Correction Phase 2 grant, and that's the one that we're working on with other partners of the Hood Canal Coordinating Council. That's the one that's doing the seepage pit project, and they've made the first round of collections of samples at the seepage pit sites. We have the Oakland Bay Identification and Correction. This one, I have to thank the State Department of Health. They gave us this without us applying for it to continue the work at the north end of Oakland Bay and Chapman Cove, because it is so important to both the State Department of Health and the Squaxin Island Tribe that those 2 areas be open unconditionally.
Wow.
Historically,
that
they've
one?
never been, this one is $250,000
You didn't have to
total.
apply for it.
No.
What was
Yay.
the district?
$250,000.
What was the district?
Oh, it is the north end of Oakland Bay and Chapman Cove.
Okay.
And it's also money to write the 2 plans for the Hood Canal Number 6 Big Bend and the McLean Cove Shellfish Protection Districts. They gave us that money
Chapman
too.
Cove's never been open, has it?
Well, that's part of it. These 2 areas they want to open unconditionally have never been open unconditionally.
So Japan's open, but conditionally.
It's open conditionally, yes. Yeah, we've made great strides in there. Part of Oakland Bay, because it is such a prolific shellfish producing area, the bottom has been altered by the shellfish growers. Rather than being mud that'll suck a freight train down, according to some of the history lessons I've gotten here, the bottom has been hardened with gravel, which is much more friendly to the oysters and clams that are being grown there. So a lot of things are changing. That also, Chapman Cove was historically cattle ranch. Yeah, and those people have over time sold off their cattle and really worked on being good stewards of the water to their own detriment.
And Chapman Cove is where?
It's,
If you were to travel on Bagot Road, you know, where Pioneer School is, go beyond there, and
Beaver
there's
Lane's
roads
above it.
Okay.
and if you're looking across Oakland Bay, can you see it from Chapman Cove? You can't really.
No,
From
not
Highway.
really.
I know, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Pioneer School area.
Yeah, exactly. So those are the things we're working on. I am currently working with a group that sent in a proposal for a near-term action with the Alliance for a Healthy South Sounds part of the Environmental Protection Agency money that is coming down to the local implementing organizations. I said it all without an initial. To look at shellfish protection districts and to continue some work in shellfish protection districts. We lumped everything together from Thurston, Mason, Pierce, and a little bit of Kitsap, and it was over $5 million for 2 years. So I went to a meeting a couple weeks ago, and we all sat down like this around a table and said, okay, in each of your areas, if we could give you a little bit of money, where do you think you can make some noticeable improvement? And it was the knee-jerk thing. I said McLean Cove. And they said, okay, put that on the list. So that might be a source of funding to do the actual work that's coming out of the plan that's being written right now. So that's what we can get from that one. The other is through the Hood Canal Coordinating Council work, our pollution identification and correction. We'd be going into a phase 3, and that'll be at the end of 2017. So we keep building in the Hood Canal on previous work and going on to the next projects.
Can I ask you something about Hood Canal? Is it 6?
Absolutely.
That's not a very populated area, is it? I mean, I think the seals do you have any idea of the seal population and what impact they have?
One of the biologists from the Skokomish tribe told me that you knew when the killer whales were in because the seals were on anything that floated. And that's Hood Canal 6.
Because they've been, the whales have been in and out kind of this last month or so.
Yeah, I don't have the numbers on here. Terry, any input on Hood Canal 6? Besides, it is really not very populated.
Well, that's what drains Alderbrook.
Yeah.
Is Hood
Okay.
6. All of Alderbrook drains to that area. So Hood Canal 6
Thank you.
is everything from the garage, basically this way, toward past Alderbrook,
Which
past
road?
Freddie Schmidt's house, down past Nordstrom,
Okay.
you know,
Which
along
garage?
that shore.
Where are you starting? Which road?
Union, right where the point is that comes out?
Yeah.
So there's a point there, there's an old garage, there's
Yeah.
the Union Boat Ramp, all of that is part of this
Is
drain.
part of Hood Canal 6. And I'm sorry, I had my numbers upside down.
And then it also includes the North Shore, so that opposite side on the North Shore, so
As
summer
well.
tide and all of those things also drain.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a lot, it's not farther towards the west.
Right.
No, that'd be 9. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Backwards.
Excuse me.
But the other thing that I wanted to pass out to you that I didn't print up in time to go in your packets, and Lydia, I think there's going to be plenty of these, is something that Commissioner Jeffries and I have talked about a little bit inside conversations, and that's Governor Inslee's shellfish, oh gosh, I passed them all out, his shellfish initiative. Thank you. And numbers 1, I got it. Okay, thank you. Numbers 1, ensure clean water, prevent and fix pollution problems, and reopen shellfish beds. And number 6, enhance recreational shellfish harvest, connect people with shellfish and harvest experiences, protecting shoreline environments, and restoring water quality around Puget Sound, Wolapa Bay, Grace Harbor, and Outer Coast. So those are the places that we fit into the Governor Shellfish Initiative. Under the key successes, it says reopen shellfish beds. 2,429 acres of shellfish beds have been opened in Oakland Bay, Quartermaster Harbor, Hood Canal, Belfair, Kingston, and Dungeness Bay since 2012. Just under half of that area is here in Mason County. This is the work that our staff have done, the citizens have done, our partners in Oakland Bay and the Hood Canal projects have done. We've had 2 really nice celebrations. But I come to you because we need a continuous, sustainable, dependable source of funding to continue this work.
And Quartermaster Harbor is there.
Vashon.
Kitsap, oh,
Vashon Island.
yeah.
Okay.
So we have some public here today also. Constance or Terry, would you like to add to the discussion at all?
Not at this time.
No?
I'm waiting.
Okay. So what's the thought?
I have a question now. We had that lawsuit years ago, when it came to the other fee. The Conservation District, one of the problems was assigning a value onto the lands for benefit. How are you gonna assign a value on the lands for benefit when their drainage goes to Grace Harbor, Kitsap County, Pierce County, Thurston County, Clallam?
It's not the same sort of assessment. It's not a natural resources assessment like the Conservation District one was.
So it won't
This
have to
is-
show benefit to the person you're putting the fee on?
It will show those same benefits to the economy, to our tourist industry, our, employees in the shellfish
health.
industry. Public health is the big one, for not only our surface water, but our drinking water, disease control, the whole gambit of things that follow along here. That's the,
That's a shellfish protection district?
No, she's talking septic fee.
it is the one that the legislature passed 2 years ago. Yes, 6116 was the number then. And, the task force, okay. Senate Bill 6116 gave the authority to assess a fee for operation and maintenance to local jurisdictions. 2 of the 12 Puget Sound counties used the legislation to further their programs to date. And I got an email last week that said Clallam County enacted a 2-year. They're going to try it for 2 years. So, and Thurston County and King County are still in the works. The proposed legislation for 2015 changed the May in 6116 to shall and imposed a $30 per year on-site sewage system fee. It's very close to the $32 per year proposed by the 2010 Sustainable Water Quality Program and the work we were charged to do under the 2011 Mason County Clean Water Program at $27 per year.
6116 wasn't passed, was it?
6116 was passed, it was the update in 2015 that didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
when you say may and
The
shall.
May and shall did not go anywhere.
Okay, so that was on the revision.
Yeah, so the may is still law,
So, not shall.
shall is not law.
I thought I was gonna say, I
I was
missed
gonna say, you're
that.
mixing
Yeah.
it up.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, and it's a councilmanic vote. It gives the authority to the local electeds to impose this fee. We were suggesting not 27, not 30, not $32, but $19 per on-site septic system per year. The people who have property that don't have on-site septic systems would not pay. The people that are connected to public sewers would not pay. The people who have any sort of an elderly, veteran, all of those things that are reduced would not pay into this. It would just,
They have a special tax rate?
Yes, thank you. yeah, an accommodation, that's what I was trying to think of.
I have a question.
Yes,
Does the discharge from our sewer system affect our water quality?
potentially. It is treated to a point that it should not. So there's a safety closure zone around the discharge because we have marine water discharge.
Unless occasionally the untreated sewage gets discharged because.
And that's why that safety net is there. The new sewage treatment plant is wonderful.
So they technically do not affect our shellfish beds.
Except those areas that are closed forever just because of their proximity and the potential for pollution.
Right.
And around marinas are also closed.
Yes.
Yeah, just trying to
Mhm.
think in my mind why we would tax the on-site sewage and not people who are on sewer, but it's because the sewer technically is treated.
Yes.
Well, technically, on-site is treated as well.
Yeah.
But you can't, yeah, but you can't harvest around the
Yeah.
outfall. I mean, if the sewer, if the on-site, if the marine, if it was upland disposal,
Well, this law allows it to tax on-site systems.
Yes. Period.
That's, that.
but we have systems like North Bay or Belfair which are treated upland.
Mhm.
So what would happen to those people? Would they be classified?
They wouldn't pay.
They don't have a septic.
They're not.
No,
They don't
you don't have
on-site
septic.
system.
It's just individual on-site
And
septic
just
systems.
for everybody knows, all water outfalls are supposed to have a long-term plan to eventually get to land. It's very expensive, and it's very difficult because you could be in a place where you'd have to travel miles to find a spray field. And that's a lot of piping, but
And
there's supposed to be a move towards no more water outfall.
And they pay an annual permit to the Department of Ecology for their marine water disposal. So, no, they would not be included in this at all.
So they're carrying the shoulder responsibility for paying for everybody. Even though they're not actually the ones that are even causing the problem, there's so many other issues that cause problems besides septics. More especially the people that are being charged for this are mostly not gonna be the ones that are at fault, and maybe a few that are, but.
Yeah, but we're finding,
Broad statement.
yeah,
No, that's what I'm saying, it's a broad statement on the tax. that's a very broad thing on the taxes, saying we're gonna charge these people who may or may not have a small influence on it. The ones that do have an influence might be 1 or 2 out of the 2,500 or 15 out of the 2,500, but yet we have nothing that covers the people that are on a sewer system, or any of the other people that are gonna benefit from this. And the weight goes on a very small group of people that don't even have that great impact, so.
Well, the people on the sewer systems are basically paying through their sewer grants, you know, for some of the work that
I
needs
didn't know
to
we
be
used any of
done.
that money for your.
We don't, but for the work that needs to be done for water quality. You know, they're paying for that sewer system maintenance and upgrade and, you know, all of that routine stuff. Maybe looking for a piece of land to buy for future upland disposal. You know, so that's all built in. That's why it's only on on-site septic. I would agree with you that a place in the middle of 20 acres probably isn't bothering anybody. But we've got 200 named lakes in this county, and how many other wetlands and marshes and little private lakes. We've got however many drinking water wells, small groupie public water systems that we're needing to protect. It's not just somebody with a failing septic system getting to the water. That's one component, and that's a big one. But it's that ongoing work we do with the septic service reminders. It's any technical assistance we give to people who call and say, hey, you know, the pumper told me this, what do you think? It just pays for that whole program. The lakes, as Commissioner McDowell pointed out, we had a lakes program under the Conservation District funds that was really starting to take off and be successful when we didn't have that money anymore to follow up with it. So by focusing on the shellfish, I might be doing it a disservice because there are so many things that play into it. But at the same time, who else pulls $10 million worth of shellfish out of Oakland Bay? I live upland in Oakland Bay. You know, I'm not a waterfront person or anything, but I didn't mind paying my $5 a year for the assessment. I don't mind paying 5 cents a day to make sure that Oakland Bay stays harvestable and clean, you know, but that's me.
And if it was just taxing you, I would be okay with the tax on it.
Yeah, you know.
I'm sorry.
What percentage of our Mason County is on-site?
You gave us that at the beginning.
Yeah, on-site septic systems were just under 26,000 on-site septic systems.
So what percentage is that? Do you have an idea?
We have,
Your occupancy of 2.5 people per septic system.
yeah,
Kind of is a statewide average.
and we have the city of Shelton on sewer.
Not all of it.
No, we do service some of those properties as well. We have Alderbrook, the resort is on sewer, North Bay, at Allen, Belfair Sewer,
We've got about 3,500 homes on sewer.
Lakeland.
Not county.
Lakeland
Not
Village.
county Shelton. So I don't know what Shelton's numbers are.
Shelton is about 10,000 people.
10,500.
People,
Yeah, people.
Would you-
But part of,
6,200 people.
but part of those, there's 2 communities, there's 2 neighborhoods in the Shelton city limits that's county, and they're on septic. They're not annexed, they haven't been. So
Right,
they're-
and there's,
And I don't know how many people in each one of those neighborhoods.
right, and there's a few here and there that just because of the geography couldn't be
Lake
connected.
Boulevard, Beverly Heights is still septic.
And we have some up on the top there, Terrace Heights and stuff, because of that big ravine, could
Right.
not get sewer to them, so they're on septic systems, so
Yeah.
we do have a few.
So many of our homes, I think, I saw a number at one point, 20% of the housing in Mason County is recreational or vacation homes. So there's a lot of folks that are on septic
You
that
said
are.
20%
Yeah, I saw that number a while back.
You're right, that's what I remember.
in Mason County?
Yeah, and what we were sharing with Dave is that, you know, really rough round numbers, we have a population of about 60,000 people in Mason County that swells to about 100,000 during the summer.
Mm.
Yeah.
So,
So we have I've heard that we've had the largest percentage of unoccupied homes. So when they're unoccupied for months and months, they're certainly not impacting the water quality. But there's a lot of other things that impact water quality. Look at all the state highways that are right next to the beaches.
The highways, the percentage of cover on the lots, you know, we have some very small lots with some very big homes, so there's not much cover, so.
Well,
One of the,
the other thing I was going to mention is, a lot of people, you mentioned how many people are on single-family wells. And many of those people, I'd probably the vast majority of them are on-site systems. So that, you know, they're drinking the water below their
some
system.
are,
And it is generally, I mean, there's very, very few problems with people polluting their well by their septic tank because of the approvals, and as Dave mentioned, you clean your, you know, the water is reused by those people. So I think taxing them, they feel like, hey, we're not the problem. Here we are living very sustainably, and it's very hard to blanket, you know, kind of blanket tax people for shellfish when there's so many different lifestyles here and situations.
Yeah, I think what the biggest question here is, Debbie's made an assumption of about somewhere around $400,000 would be needed for a robust water quality program. How would that be paid for? The legislature seems to think that a septic fee is the way to pay for it because that's what they've authorized counties to do. If this group doesn't think that a septic fee is the way to pay for it, then maybe it's incumbent on us to come up with how would we come up with $400,000. I don't want to sit here and get stuck on the one funding mechanism available to us. There
I
might be others.
personally have several septics, and I wouldn't mind paying $20 on each of them every year. And people that come out in the summer to enjoy their property, I think they want clean water when they get there.
Oh, yeah.
And I honestly don't think, even though they're only there half a year or 2 months out of the year, that they would mind paying a few extra dollars a year to make sure they have water quality. And I think the water quality benefits everybody in the county, not just those that are close to the water. That's my personal opinion, but.
That's why I was in favor of $5 per parcel throughout the whole region. I'm simpler that way for clean water districts. Separated out where the money's going to be used, you know, locally for whatever impact happens in that particular region or whatever. Although I do know that it, you know, you put it together with the idea of that past lawsuit, it wouldn't be that hard to actually fulfill the obligation and put a value to it for the community.
So this is an authorized fee through the legislature, or the RCP.
Clean water districts and fees, yes.
How much does that come to then? $5 per lot?
125,000.
No, there's more parcel. How many parcels?
No, parcel.
Yeah.
I mean, I have 2 parcels, you know.
Oh,
so-
okay.
Per parcel.
I have 4.
But $5, that is
So
just
if we do
nothing.
parcel that's not developed, we're looking at about 52,000 parcels in the county.
But you can't do it on timberland because
No.
it's against state law.
Have to go
Right.
timberland, but- So there is money there, there's a lot to do with it. It's a fair thing that's spread around for everybody. And it goes for a purpose of clean water throughout the region. It's easy to say that, you know, because there's streams and lakes and stuff in those regions, it's easy to put a value to those as well so that everybody actually has something. I hate for us to institute something that comes back to us later, even though it's allowed. If we start taxing people that they get no benefit or value from it, that's been known to come back and haunt people. I'm not a big fan of that. I'm not sure she is.
So you can't just, I'm sorry, excuse me. You can't just do the $5 fee charge for people that just have septics. Are you saying
Well, that's
$5 for everyone? Every parcel, whether
Every
there's
parcel.
any septic there or not?
Yes.
But what does that,
That,
that's.
I don't know where, what we would fall back on
Well,
to
and
charge.
and again, I'm not making the plan, I'm just telling you guys that, the stuff, when I looked into it, was it last year, 2 years ago, and we worked with some of the people down at Wasack and had some conversations, it seemed very viable, it's something that we could look at again, you and I have had discussions about it, but never went forward with it. I think we also talked about it, Hood Canal, at one point.
Mhm.
But it's just a different option than what we're talking about. I'm not a fan of this one, or the idea of putting all the burden on a select few people for everybody's.
Well, it's not just a select few, because there's a lot of septics.
And I just don't understand why it would be lots that aren't developed, why they would get that charge.
Why what?
Lots that aren't developed, parcels that aren't developed,
Would pay.
would pay that $5.
Mhm.
When you say that to anybody in the city, you're gonna get a charge $5 every month, and it's for this and this, and some people don't have
Every
it.
month, every year.
I know, but
Yeah.
still, I mean, that's tiny, but still, there's people out there would go, I'm not gonna pay that.
Oh, absolutely,
principle.
just like there are the ones that would be $20 on them that are actually trying to make a house payment and everything else. It's simply,
Mhm.
the burden's the burden, it's still a burden.
It's the principle of it.
But when you look at a parcel, you're a member of this community, and you're looking at the whole community, and the water quality is for the whole community, for all the different ways we do it,
And-
use it.
And remember, make clear, this is not for septics. The septic people be charged, but
Mhm.
they're not the ones responsible for everything that's going on. They're just the ones we charge it through. That's where I think
Where, if I may interject, some places you may find a rub is in the terminology. Fees are generally considered to be for the benefit of those who pay the fee. Hunters pay license fees. Taxes, on the other hand, are funds generated that can be used for other
Mhm.
beneficial purposes, not necessarily for the person who paid them. So when we talk about these things, I think we have to be careful about the language we use to discuss. I mean, is this a fee? Does this go back to the person who, with the septic system, for the benefit of that person with the septic system, or is it something applied in a broader way, which would then really be a tax?
I agree with
So
everything you
what
said.
does the WAC say? I mean, does it, how does
Septic-
it work?
The $19 she's recommending is a fee.
Yes.
And somehow or another, nobody's gotten sued about the benefit or supposed benefit of that $19.
No.
I'm guessing the $5
Well,
is a fee as well.
It also depends on how it's imposed. If it's a small district, like we already have had at different times, that actually has drainage into that watershed, you can give a value and stuff to that. But for these ones that don't, such as the ones that drain into Kitsap, Grace Harbor, the waterways, if it's a fee, they have no benefit. It doesn't go to theirs for the shellfish and for the stuff that we're talking about in our river here.
One thing we have to keep in mind is that there is no authorization to do something like a $5 fee for each and every parcel.
The Clean Water District doesn't allow for that? From what I understood,
No, those are affected parcels in a shellfish protection district that can have a fee. And that can be whatever we decide it takes to implement the plan, once the plan's written. But something like the Conservation District Assessment Fee, that was very specific for natural resources. The law that 6116 implemented was operation and maintenance, very tank septic system oriented, and then the PIC work that would go along with that became part of that program. But that's specific to on-site septic systems, not to every lot. And that's what we found is either you have stormwater protection district that includes everybody, and the health department would get a portion of that for water quality work, or you implement these operation and maintenance / PIC districts under 6116, or you have something that I don't think we'll ever get the conservation district to sign on with us again, that's a natural resource protection for every lot. So there's just nothing in law that would allow for what we had talked about before, and what for the thing that former Commissioner Bloomfield was was trying to push through.
Well, a reminder on that one on the natural resource issue, that wasn't what got them in trouble. What
No,
the failure
no.
was is they did not assess a value to each parcel. That was what the state Supreme Court voted unanimously against them for, because they did not present or provide an assessed value that is gained by the action. That's that other second conversation right on fees. That's where they got in trouble. That's why it was, the appeals court was overturned by the state Supreme Court unanimously.
Yeah, part of that money went to the health.
Yes. Yes, they were very generous and shared that with us. That is,
But it was
Conservation
very
District.
controversial. I
Yes,
went to
it
the
was.
meeting, it was approved by the county commission in about 92, no, later than
no, it was 2000,
2008,
I
2002.
think you're talking about that other one for the test of the septic, remember that one? Wow.
No, and it was a 2-to-1 decision, it was very controversial, and it was over,
Yeah.
it was put on the tax statements.
Yep.
And then the court, the treasurer, our treasurer, after a couple of years, held it in an account.
yes.
While we watched the litigation
Mhm.
go forward, and then the litigation overturned.
And what was the fee?
$5 per parcel.
Per year.
Clean Water District?
Per year.
Or the conservation?
For the,
Conservation
Conservation.
District assessment.
they
And
called
again,
it that. but-
it wasn't the action that was wrong. It was that they didn't assess a value for the
Yeah.
action
And put down $0, and
for benefit.
they said that that was not appropriate, that even if it had been a penny, rather than $0 for the timber and the other ones.
Because when you have those fees, you have to have a benefit for it, as you know, on some of these things. Minus the benefit, but the zero shows no benefit.
My concern is that because we haven't had specific funding that we are allowed to determine the use for, we have neglected a few areas. The water quality is getting worse. I'll be coming back to you and saying, okay, we've got 2 more downgrades and no money to do the work in these areas as required under the law. And you'll be tasked with potentially charging a fee to the people in those designated areas to conduct the work. I myself find a water fee for on-site work, for PIC work, countywide, as laid out in our plan, that would go 5 different drainage basins on a rotational basis, very similar to what Kitsap County has been doing under their swim program for many, many years. Much more palatable than going to a group of 40 people who live in an area and say, okay, you guys authorized this plan, you worked on us with this plan, now it's going to cost you $250 a year to implement it. I find that very hard to do to those people who have tried so hard.
But what about looking at some funds that we already collect? So we collect, as a rural county, we collect 0.09% of the state sales tax, which we retain here in the county for
Right.
economic development, infrastructure, other purposes. So we have about, $600,000 that we collect. Could we use a portion, I think we could use a portion
We-
of that money.
We use $200,000 a year for 4 years for Oakland Bay
Mhm.
because the commissioners very graciously opened that door for us. That's the infrastructure for the shellfish
Yeah.
industry. It's not brick and mortar, but it certainly is the
And that's
infrastructure.
not challenged, that was
No.
I mean, Walla Walla, they used it to put windows in the courthouse at one time.
Mhm.
So that money is flexible.
Mhm.
What about using those existing funds?
I have nothing against that.
On the last
I
one,
just-
if I wasn't mistaken, Commissioner, you were looking at that, are you willing to look at that again?
We
I don't
didn't
recall
apply
how-
for it.
That vote,
Um,
Commissioner. I don't
We
recall
had
it.
discussion, we had a lot of grants at that point in time, and the money would better be used for the Belfair sewer at that point in time. No, I've come to the commission before and said, you just want to write it into our budget, give us county contribution. So, yes, that's much more
I mean,
palatable to me.
that's collected from sales tax.
Yes.
So that everybody, and maybe that helps with your concern, Peggy, everybody pays that.
But
Visitors, residents.
what does the little old lady who lives up on Grove Street benefit from that? That's-
She's already paid.
It's already
already
been collected.
I mean, with that, we take some of that money and put, where you're talking about it.
Our other infrastructures and stuff.
Yeah, what does that do to the little old lady that never travels out of Shelton?
She probably gets a little more sales tax in her community bucket because people come and harvest shellfish and camp out.
And currently, I think,
Go to Oyster Fest
180, I
and all.
think maybe down to 150,000 per year out of the 09 currently goes to the Shelton sewer. So
How much?
It was 180 2 years ago, but it was.
It's gone down.
It was regressive, so I'm not sure what it is this year.
So how regressive is that gonna
I
be?
think right now it's 125,000.
It drops, the principal drops.
It was a
Okay.
20-year obligation. It was a 20-year obligation.
Okay,
So,
all right,
We pay for the we pay a portion of the water line going out to,
the correction center and
well,
State Patrol,
to Johnsbury
Johnsbury.
years ago too, and
Mhm.
that is getting close to being paid off.
Okay,
So,
I think the other piece is that, you know, when you talk about anytime you talk about economic development, when you're expanding your tax base, it means that the little old lady on Coda Street hopefully won't be paying more in taxes, mostly in property taxes, because now you've lifted up the tax base. You've got more taxpayers, the land values are more high. So, the direct benefit is she hopefully won't be paying more money in taxes.
so what I'm hearing is that we don't really have any solutions. Totally, but I don't know.
I don't know if we have a new tax
No new-
solution,
yeah,
a
no
new source
new-
of revenue, but I think we have existing revenue in the county. And
So-
part of that existing, to solve some of that problem,
Yes.
is prioritizing how we spend the money
Spend the money.
differently.
But actually, what I've heard so far is a willingness to fund the work.
Yes.
So, you know, it's just trying to figure out how to fund it, in what way. I really haven't heard anyone saying we shouldn't do this work, we shouldn't invest in this, because it is good for the economy of this county.
That PIC program is one of the finest things that I've seen in prior months since I came into this job.
Okay, for the new guy. Okay,
Pollution identification and correction.
okay.
So go out and find that.
identify the pollution.
Debbie has one that we're working on. It's a guy that's basically converted a house and a garage into 4 residences.
Okay.
Big septic system and no room for repair.
No room
Who was
to,
this?
It's out in the county.
Oh.
just as an example.
So
hidden program.
I guess we better move on then to
No,
the health
that's
officer.
another
Oh,
thing.
is this the one that has the
No,
rents
this,
out?
this
in the
is a
lawn?
completely
No,
different
no.
one.
Oh, they're all over the place, huh?
So, due to time,
Yeah.
I'm gonna move on to the health officer.
Okay, so just a very brief update for you. You know, we typically maybe have one case of active tuberculosis about every 3 or 4 years in this county. And we were blessed with 2 last month, active cases. So we don't see a lot of them. And we only have a very, very part-time nurse who works in this program. Fortunately, these are fairly run-of-the-mill tuberculosis cases. They're not multiple drug resistance that cost a lot of money and require a lot of resources, but it is increased work at a point in time. I don't think we are asking for any increased funding or anything. We're able to run this out of our budget. The work involves, you know, doing what we call direct observed treatment. So we see the patients every day, and we provide their treatment. We also do something called contact investigation, try to figure out who may have been exposed and try to figure out who needs to be tested and who needs to be treated because they became infected. So all of this is taking time. In the same time period, we also had 2 what we call rule-outs. We get those a couple of times a year. It just so happened that in this last month we were just kind of slammed with 4 all at the same time. So it's been a great learning opportunity for some of our newer staff members, which is good. And we're working on that. So just wanted to let you know in case you hear about the other, and there is no risk to the community. The patients that have been infected and that have active disease have been on treatment are doing well. So they're taken care of, and people who've become infected by them have been identified and treated as well. They're undergoing treatment right now. The other issue that we have been kind of focusing on in the last few months has been part of our Moving Mason Forward agenda on substance abuse. You recall the last meeting that I was at. I don't know if we've had a meeting since that I missed. Okay. I can't remember. But we had talked about opiate use, and I had the opportunity to go to one of the meetings with the Criminal Justice Working Group to address some of their concerns. There is actually a public meeting tonight, a community forum at the library, talking about overdose, drug abuse prevention. So I've been there's a small group of us that have been meeting at the health department, and we have actually explored more with our medical partners over at the hospital, with some of our treatment providers. We are working with, there's a couple of students from the University of Washington School of Public Health that's going to be doing a survey primarily among Mason County residents who use the Thurston County Syringe Exchange, and getting some, and doing some interviews there, and doing some interviews with key informants here in the community, all around this issue of substance abuse and where we're going to go with this. The plan is for us to have a larger community forum a little later this year, where we're going to bring together all interested parties to talk about gaps in what we have in terms of treatment, availability, what are the barriers, and try to come up with a community plan, community solution. I don't have any preconceived notions of exactly what it's going to be. We are going to be looking at the plan that was developed by the state of Washington, Department of Health. There's a recommended working plan for what's called the opiate working plan, for lack of a better term. But that is what, and some of the items that they have recommended in there are things that we've already put in place, like a prescription drug take-back program, getting our physicians to prescribe fewer narcotics and things like that. But there are others that we have not implemented, and so we're going to look at that and use that as kind of the backbone for our discussions when we have this community forum. So just wanted to give an update that we're continuing to work on that. And go from here. If you have any questions.
No Zika virus, no mosquito issue?
No, we had the first one in the state. That was
Yes,
enough.
we were the lucky
Yeah.
county to get the very first Zika virus case in Washington State. That person actually, by the time he was diagnosed, was already fully recovered. We have not had any others since then. There's been a lot more information about it. I think the biggest concern with Zika virus is actually continues to be for people traveling and visiting other places, and they're finding out more and more about transmission, the potential for transmission, male to male, male to female, sexual transmission. The biggest concern continues to be for pregnant women
are potentially pregnant, and then, what we've done, we get a lot of updates from the Department of Health that we continue to provide to our medical partners. I did a song and dance. I was going to say it's not a song and dance interview on the radio. I think it was last month about Zika. Just public service announcement. If there's anything newer, we probably will go ahead and put more information out. But right now, the information that we gave a month ago is still pretty accurate. And we have that up on our website. Anything, I think that's pretty much it.
Any other business or work discussion?
Just if you don't mind, look up Jefferson County and their clean water district. They created one encompassing the whole east side of it, where they assessed a fee on certain parcels outside of the city limits. So take a peek at that.
Sure will.
Any public comment?
So, my name is Constance Ibsen, and I live at 6500 East State Route 106 in Union. I live within the area of Hood Canal 6, Big Bend, which is right. Think of the Cameo and Robin Hood, anyway, that central area there. I want to correct something that Debbie said. About the first and only meeting that we've had of that Shellfish Protection District. It was one of the most disappointing meetings I've ever been to. But we didn't even get to governance. There was just this issue of communications, the letter that went out. Not everybody got a letter. People feeling that they shouldn't be within the boundaries. Wanting to know if we're going to be taxed, a lot of issues. So we didn't even get to governance. And my understanding was there was supposed to be a whole public meeting just to start all over again with communications. And one of the things also that people saw was that the county had waited to like 2 days before the 6-month report or something before they had this meeting, and it was very obvious in the materials that were sent out. I didn't see anything at that meeting. It was just really an interesting meeting. But I'm hoping, I noticed that in the material that the $100,000 is to develop these plans on Hood Canal 6 and 4, what is it, McLean Cove.
Right.
Doesn't talk about implementing them. That will be more money. And so I'm hoping, Tim brought up the word prioritize. I am hoping that Hood Canal 6 in this Big Bend area is prioritized. You have the largest, I believe, generator of tourism dollars is the Alderbrook. They are within that boundary. The one side of their dock is not, and the other side is. And then we're going, the boundaries haven't quite been set, but they've been recommended. And people, it's not just about shellfish. People call me and they say, is it all right for my granddaughter to go wading in front of the Robin Hood? So it's not just economic dollars, it's about people's health and about their perceptions about their environment. I believe there could be just a few bad actors in this that might be causing all these problems. And so one of the things that's always been missing is enforcement of regulations. And what do you do with a failing system? But how do you even find that they're failing? If their septic system is, kind of flushes out every day with a tide twice a day, then we're not going to see a failure. We're not going to see sewage on the surface. So it's one of those things that I think you really need to look at, and I'm hoping that one day we will update or we'll really look at our ordinance and what works and what doesn't work, but we need to have that enforcement built in and have some regulations that work. Kitsap has one that's kind of like a ticket. They haven't had to use it very often, but it's there. And so that's something we have to kind of talk to with the prosecuting attorney's office and see if he's amenable to it. If he isn't, so forget it, I guess. So those are the things. So I'm pushing for the Hood Canal Sex to really be a priority and to not just develop a plan, but to work it and find the problems, because I think it's going to start affecting how people use the resources around them. The other thing is, and I mentioned this to Debbie when you came to a Lower Hood Canal Watershed meeting, is we think of these homes that used to be unoccupied for a large part of the year. But now we are seeing people not rent their house out for several months, but they're doing this Airbnb stuff. So we have people going and have no idea what a septic system is like. So they do the dishwasher, you know, they don't know how to use the system. And so not only that can really change how a septic system is used. It may not be designed to have that much use that it gets with somebody who's just staying there who has no idea what a septic system is. So I think that's something that that also everybody really needs to be aware of and look at.
Thank you.
Mary?
Unfortunately, last week the Mason County Commissioners had to cancel their meeting, and I'm very sorry for your loss. But we had hoped to talk about the State of the Oyster Study and the well program that we run, and we had testing on Sunday and had a number of people come out from Mason County to test their water for lead, as well as total coliform, and also the various constituencies of iron, because a number of them are having problems with their filters, and the iron seems to be getting worse in some of our areas, and we need to make sure that they're using the right technology to get the iron out of their water. And one of the samples that came in was quite orange, and that was their drinking water. So, but we were also able to help them get some of their lead sampling done, and the lab that we use is one that is receiving the majority of the lead samples in the state for analysis. A number of labs collect the samples, but they all seem to end up at this one lab for analysis. So we're in line. There's 2,000 samples ahead of us, but ours will be done. So we're pretty excited about that. And we also received our oyster samples, and we had a number of residents submit samples. And what they're looking for is fecal coliform in their oysters or clams, and we had a number of clam samples come in too, because the clams and the oysters filter it, and they'll hold on to it for a bit. It's good food for them. It doesn't cause them any illness, but if a person was to eat it in a raw state, it could potentially cause some illness. And then we also tested for Vibrio perihemolyticus, which is that naturally occurring bacteria. I'm not sure if we'll see it or not. The state will start testing in June on a commercial scale, but we have been kind of a bellwether for them in the past, and we've had Vibrio in Hood Canal especially, and other areas of South Sound as early as early May. So we have a number of folks that tested for that. The program runs wide. We had some volunteers test from Whidbey Island, Jefferson County, Kitsap, Gig Harbor, Olympia, and then through Mason. So it's quite a large program. They all pay for it. It's all waterfront property owners. It's all non-commercial product, but it gives them an idea of what they're seeing in front of their house. If they do come back with a high level result, then we work with them to figure out what's causing the pollution and then getting them to the right resources that they need to get things corrected. And we've had some good success in the last couple of years, finding septic systems that had failed or components that had failed, and they were able to get to their contractors and get those fixed very quickly. In 2 weeks when they sampled again, the sample was clear. So they were pretty happy about that. And they're pretty simple fixes as to what we've been able to find. It seems to be that place where the sewage just finds its way, where the dog waste, where everybody walks up and down a certain area and it rains and it all runs into the bay. And so the neighborhoods get together and work on pet waste. And that helps as well, or they stop feeding the seagulls or do things on their decks and docks to help with that, as well as the seals. So we do that 4 times a year. Our first sample was Sunday. Our next sample is June 19th, which is Father's Day. And that's a great day because a lot of seasonal residents are here and they want to check their beaches. The next one after that is July 24th and then August 28th. So we purposely set our sample on the 22nd so that we'll have the results back for folks on Memorial Day so that they'll be able to do that. And in Hood Canal especially, we have large homeowner associations that sample for their community beaches so that they then go up and tell their members what their levels are like so that they know if it's safe to harvest or not.
What's
Yes.
it called again?
One is SOS, and it was started in 1987 when Belfair State Park was shut down. And it's been run by volunteers, and it's State of the Oyster Study, because it was originally going to be a study. And then for the well program, well monitoring, it's called WET, Well Education.
So the homeowners bring their product or their
There's-
animals to where?
They bring them to different drop locations. One is Hunter Farms. We have another one at QFC in Belfair. And then people can also drop them at the lab for us in
And
Kirkland.
do you contact them directly? How do you let them know?
We have an extensive mailing list of about 500 individual beaches that have participated over since 1987.
And are you doing any kind of longitudinal study on all this?
And we do that routinely. We're looking at their areas, their beaches, etc.
And what are you finding? Any ahas or anything about?
No, the highest count I believe I've ever seen is 64,000 that came in on some oysters, and it was on the south shore of Hood Canal. And when I called the
There's no
person,
trends that you're watching?
the trend is that if they see any elevation, then they immediately go look and see what's causing it. I mean, generally we're able to get it back right away. So that 64,000 we got in oysters was very, very high. And so I called the person right away when we got the alert from the lab, before we had gotten the rest of the testing done, and I was talking to him. And I could hear, I said, what are you looking at? What do you remember for that day? Were there seals? What was out there? And all of a sudden I heard water spraying. And it happened that the neighbor locked their dogs on the porch over the deck during the day when they were at work. And they used to spray the feces off every day into the water when they got home. And so the neighbor went over and talked to the homeowner, and they stopped that practice, and we've never had a problem again. In Vashon, this last year, we had an elevated reading, and the homeowners had a practice of sweeping off their deck and their float, and the duck poop and the seal poop and everything was going into the water and feeding the oysters down below. And so they had done that. They waited a day, and then they collected their sample, and the sample was hot. We asked them what they had done. They stopped that practice, and we've never had a problem again. And we're able to alert the entire network of folks that monitor with us about those practices that we've observed, so that they can learn from other people's challenges. And we had the same at Upper Hood Canal. So,
Are you having a high call for lead testing within the city limits?
no, we did not receive any from the city of Shelby.
Okay, so if we have somebody concerned about that, we direct them to you?
If you want, if you would like to have them come through the lab that we use, it's a $15 sample for lead.
Okay, okay.
And the lead sample can be held for a period of time, and it can be collected in any water bottle. It depends on if they're looking for the connector or they're looking for it in the distribution system as to how we advise them into taking the sample.
Okay, thank you.
When I met Terry, it was at the Port Allen, and we had an issue with high readings, and it turned out to be pigeons underneath the thing, underneath the docks. I don't remember if it was because we cleaned the pigeon area or what, but I remember it was the pigeons. We had to find a way to handle that.
There are now spikes underneath there, so they
Yeah.
cannot roost under the dock.
The highest count Mason County Environmental Health ever got out testing was a hole through the bulkhead at a place. The roof was almost white from bird droppings, and it was runoff from the roof.
Okay, any more comments? Adjourn.
Thank you. Terry, can I-